So we are seeing a big change in the way services are delivered. Uh, I mean, service delivery has been disrupted like never before. And for organization, the shift from being co-located to in-person to being remote and virtual is a big change. It's a major impact in the way they operate and they deliver services. And career services is facing same challenges. An efficient digital career services ecosystem has never been more important. So, nowadays students are not only looking for a better online support, but it's also forcing career centers to find new ways to offer services virtually. Some career services organizations have been able to pivot quickly, and there are many that are still trying to catch up. And there are many organizations that were able to change and adapt to this new normal in a more robust way because of their people, process, and technology that they had in place. And one of the leaders in this space is DeVry University. DeVry has been conducting career services virtually for many years for both campus and online. And colleagues in industries always ask DeVry leaders on how they do career advising and planning virtually. So with that end, I'm extremely proud to have joined today by our partners at DeVry University, Ron, Eric, and Terry. Ron is the National Director of Career Services at DeVry University. Eric is Director of Career Advising, and Terry is Director of Employee Relations and Internships at DeVry University. So all three of us are here with us today, and we'll be having this webinar to talk about the best practices. And we want to hear some of the learnings and insights that DeVry has gained over many years of their experience doing this. We want to keep this webinar conversational. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will also have enough time at the end of the webinar to take more questions. And if you have suggestions and advices, feel free to bring that up. So with that, Ron, welcome. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit more about DeVry's career services team and other leaders that have joined us today, and also the services that your team provides at DeVry?
Yes, thank you. That sounds good. I'm Ron Gashler, as Pratish said. I'm the National Director for Career Services and Employer Relations at DeVry University. And I've been involved at other universities prior to DeVry, and have, over the years, recently, we've all been talking about scaling our services and making them more meaningful to our students, whether you're dealing with on-campus or online, and whether you're dealing with multiple campuses. At DeVry University, several years ago, they were moving toward a more national model, where previously we had career services colleagues in almost every market, almost every campus, and a much larger team. And as we work in an environment where we encourage continuous improvement, we wanted to be able to offer equitable service to everybody, whether they were studying online or they were studying at a campus in a big city versus a small city. So we started that process probably closer to 5 years ago, which Terry and Eric will highlight in terms of how we deliver it to students. And if you saw part 2 of our webinar coming in a couple days, Terry, who oversees our employer relations, will highlight that and how we deliver it to our employers. And Eric will address also some additional information about how we deliver the service to students in a way that's broken up geographically and by majors. So I'll turn it over to Eric, who can elaborate a little bit on that.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Ron. Thank you, Pratish. My name is Eric Hallegui, and I am the Director of Career Advising at DeVry. I've been with DeVry for about 5 years, and over those 5 years, I was able to take a team of advisors that primary sat at a campus and move them to be fully remote. And now we have a team of 2 regional managers, and they each manage a team of a total of 23 career advisors that sit across the country. And so, as Pratish mentioned, we've been able to do this for some time, and so luckily we've had some number of years under our belt working remotely, and so as COVID happened and everything moved online, we were able to seamlessly transition into that model as well. And so I'm happy to share and excited to share some of the best practices and the hurdles that we've had to overcome and some things that we learned along the way. And I'm more than happy to talk more about our service to our students, but first wanted to just have Carrie Bowman introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Eric. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Great. Hi, good afternoon. This is Carrie Bowman. I'm the Director of Employer Relations and Internships for DeVry University. I've been with DeVry now for just a little bit over 6 years, and one of the first tasks that was given to me when I started was to get the virtual career platform up and running. So we have actually been at this for just about 6 years now, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that on Thursday and all the different events we facilitate for employers. I work very closely with Eric and Ron and the rest of the Career Services team. Looking forward to hearing more. Thanks so much.
Great. So this is Eric again, and I can talk a little bit more about the way that we structured our service towards students. But before I talk about that structure, I wanted to give a little history. So it was maybe probably about 5 years ago when I first started at DeVry. Career Services was very decentralized. We had 80 campuses across the United States. Majority of those campuses had its own career services function and leadership running through that organization or through those individual campuses with a home office oversight. Over the coming years, it just made sense for a variety of reasons to centralize career services and that function that we had, and also change the focus of the team, where it was historically very focused on employment numbers and data collection, moving to a more service function and focusing on how do we uniquely and help our students and alumni face the challenges that they have in job search versus just finding out whether they're employed or not employed. And so through those changes, we were able to learn a lot of things. And so today, as I mentioned, we have a team of 23 career advisors, and they help our students, our recent graduates, as well as our alumni in their career development. And the way that we work with students and alumni is through a kind of a self-registration process. Again, in that old world, historically, we would always help everyone. Whether they needed help or not, we would call them, we would email them, we would do about everything that we could to get in front of them. And it was a lot of wasted time and energy because for obvious reasons, trying to help someone in their job search when they don't want help or need help or kind of, are open in that space, it was a lot of wasted energy from us. And so changing the model to say, we're here, and as soon as you need us, and as soon as you want to seek out service and that one-on-one coaching, we will absolutely help and establish those services. And so we created a unique registration process where students and alumni could register for services at any time. And when they did that, they were paired with a career advisor that would reach out to them and help them navigate whatever obstacle they were having. We have a very diverse student and alumni population. And so we also knew that a one-size-fits-all wasn't the solution for our students and alumni. So we spent a lot of resources and time training our advisors to be really subject matter experts in coaching and be able to provide a customized experience for each individual that come to our virtual doors, if you will. And to the team of advisors that we have, they take a lot of time and they listen. I like to kind of talk about how our service is twofold. One is where they might wear more of a coaching hat, and another is where they might wear more of an advising hat. And in that coaching hat, they're really asking questions. They're just trying to gather information, asking really thoughtful, open-ended questions to gather information and to find out what are the true obstacles the student experiences. As I'm sure many of you who work in the career services world, the majority of the time, a student might come to us and say, I need help with my resume. Well, sure, right? The resume is going to be very important, but let's talk about other things that might be impacting the development of the resume. Let's spend some time really digging deeper and kind of really going the distance to find out what that is. And so the coaching period that the advisor might spend is just, again, asking those deeper, open-ended questions. Then we also know that our students do need help. They need the ability to give direction and give specific examples of how they can move themselves further. And so that's when the advisor will put their advising hat on and create that space that allows them to say, as a student, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And as your advisor, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And I found that really has helped in the virtual space, is to create that partnership that allows the student to know that someone out there in the virtual world is there for them and has some accountability in their job search, but also giving them very detailed, specific things that they need to work on to push themselves forward in that job search.
Thank you, Eric. Pratish is working on fixing the video, everyone. There was also a comment about slides. We wanted this to be conversational, answering some guided questions, and then we'll be opening it up for Q&A to the group. So you can start entering your questions in the chat section, which Pratish will feed to us shortly. So picking up where Eric left off, it's been great operating the way that we've been, and I feel that it's really offered an equitable service to all of our students online and on campus. I think that Eric will share some best practices. Sometimes people ask us, it's like a mystery of how we deliver career advising online and remote, but sometimes it's not as much of a mystery as you think. And Eric often shares some tips around that and how we engage our colleagues and our students and alumni. Do you want to talk about some of that, Eric?
Sure. I think one of the things when we're working with students, and as I mentioned, we have that kind of opt-in feature for students and alumni to do. I know it's important for me as a manager of career advisors to understand that when a student does opt in, that we are then taking the next step and getting a hold of them, right? That we are being proactive in that outreach. They took the time to fill out a form to let us know that they raised their hand and they're open and wanting career services. So we needed to do our due diligence and make sure that we're doing everything we can to set up that appointment. And so we've constructed a series of, I guess, a process that we've implemented that allows our advisors to understand what the expectation is to be able to reach out. And so we look for our advisors to do at least 3 outreach attempts via phone and email, and then track that. So as a management team, we understand if a student has registered for services, where are they in that scheduling process? And we're making sure that everyone is getting a robust amount of outreach attempts to schedule that appointment. We also then do a really great job of tracking that first appointment. What happened with it? Was the appointment completed, and what were the next steps? As well as maybe they weren't interested because they found employment, or they realized they don't need a help, or we weren't able to reach them, and what steps were taken to try to reach them. And then from there, right, that's kind of after the first consultation, the first appointment is had, we provide that ability for individuals to understand what is available to them through their advisor, as well as really leaning on our advisors to understand what are the next steps for the student. So many times a student might want to meet another time, or 3 times, or 4 times. We give that flexibility to the advisor and the student to decide that, as well as understanding if it should be maybe something moved to email. A lot of our students are working, they're raising families, they have very busy lives, and so scheduling time face-to-face regularly isn't possible. So we've empowered our advisors to be able to have email communication and coach via email to allow them to reach those individuals who may not be able to, meet over the phone or through a WebEx. We've also been able to create a process for our advisors to capture notes so that they have detailed notes of their advising appointments with students as that happens. And then as we move students through that coaching process and we do the basics of setting up their resume or LinkedIn profile or interviewing or networking, right? We're making sure that these individuals are what we call internally, they're referable, right? That they've kind of gone through gauntlet of career services, got them to a level that we feel confident of making them available and viewable to employers. we mark that as such in our systems so that Terry's team, and Terry manages a team of employer relations advisors, can see those individuals being ready, and they know that they can market to those students open positions that they're finding, or that we can refer their resumes over to our employer partners. And it's through this technology that we have that allows us to really have this open communication between the two teams to understand where our students are, where our seekers are, what stage are they at, and what's happening with them throughout the recruitment process, and being able to work with Terry's team in such a close capacity to make sure that we have a pipeline of candidates for our employers to view.
Thanks, Eric. Pratish made you host, Eric, if you want to try to start the video for everyone. There you go.
Here I am.
Yep, and then I don't know, I think you need to unstop it for the rest of us now. But while you look at that, Eric, I was going to address, we're going to answer a lot of questions toward the end, but I saw some that were relevant to what Eric just said. Janice was asking, how did students opt in for your service? And you kind of addressed it, Eric, but if you want to share a little bit more of like, where do students find us, for example, in the portal, and about the survey that they answer and how we divide them up amongst the advisors?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we make that kind of opt-in available throughout the student experience, whether it's an email that they get closer to graduation, whether it's we use Canvas as our LMS, whether it's in Canvas and their teachers are talking about that, or pushing it out to them in portal announcements. The events that we have, the webinars that we host every month. We really weave that into all elements of what we do here in Career Services, as well as partner closely with our academic friends and our colleagues in admissions, as well as Student Central, which is our student advising team. So really, it's important in a virtual world when we're not sitting next to our peers in those different departments to communicate the offering that we have, which is actually probably a really good note to take is, to do things in a virtual world, you really have to over communicate. And we'll talk some more about, how we communicate to students, but to take a time and talk about how we communicate to our colleagues about our offering and about our service is really, really important. And whether that's myself or Terry or Ron or any of our career advisors or anyone on the team, we empower them to be ambassadors for Career Services and reach out to their colleagues, reach out to their peers, reach out to individuals within the DeVry community to let them know of not only just our services and how students can opt in, but the events that we have and the career fairs that we host and the functions that we're sponsoring, so they can be our own kind of marketing team and marketing that message out to individuals. And then as I mentioned, right, this marketing, whatever that message is that they're receiving, leads them back to our to Cynaptx, and to be able to register through the website. And when they register, they're automatically assigned to a career advisor. Actually, even before they registered, when the students added into Cynaptx, they're already assigned to a career advisor. And we assign our career advisors based off of program and geography. So we're able to understand where every student is paired up with an advisor, and so as soon as they register, they're able to, the advisors able to immediately see that registration and take action on it. In our old world, it was about a week late, almost 2 weeks late, because the system we had up was very manual. And so by that time, right, students had moved on. And so now moving our updating our registration system through Cynaptx, we've been able to streamline that process, and we're able to get to students the same day. So there's no more wait. We know students, when they come to us, it's usually urgent. They usually have a need. We want to address it, and we don't want to miss it. And so we're able to do that quickly.
Thank you, Eric. And on that note, you mentioned something about talking about how we have to communicate a lot more often. And since we're remote, I wanted to first have you address some tips around how we keep our advising personalized, since sometimes they may never meet an advisor in person.
Yeah, and that's a difficulty, right? When we're not having that face-to-face interaction, it's hard to make that connection. I think a lot of it is the talk that we have and the way we frame our services as a partnership, that we're in this together. And that's true whether you see a piece of collateral that we develop or through a conversation from an advisor. Students know that. They know that when they reach out to an advisor, it's not kind of just one and done, that we're there for the long run. that we definitely take on a lot of accountability ourselves as your advisor to do things and to help you. And so, for example, we coach our advisors and train our advisors in a communication to say, all right, we've met for a half an hour or for an hour. Here are 3 things that I think that that you should be doing, and we'll meet on this date to discuss. But here are 3 things I'm going to also do to help move your ball forward in your job search. And so, from a student's point of view, they feel the buy-in, right? That they're not alone in this, that they're really there with someone and to be supported by them. I think the check-ins are very valuable. Our team does a lot of check-ins via email, via the phone, to stay involved in that seeker's life. Many of our students, as I'm sure many students that you work with, they might disappear, right? They're there, they drop out, they drop in, but we do a really good job and really try to stay focused on following up with those students to make sure that we're there when they need us and they know how to reach us. And that doesn't keep us kind of boxed in by a certain physical location, because we're phone and email. It's easy enough to pick those things up, and it's easy enough to check in with those individuals because we know they're not always going to come back to us and give us updates or talk to us about where their resume is or where things are at. So we're able to just be more empowered to feel like we can do that for our students and alumni to make sure that they're feeling like we're there to support them.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, and I think even just to add a kind of obvious one, I know years ago people were less comfortable with webcams than they are now, but they've become so commonplace, especially in this COVID-19 environment with everybody remote. But I think that's added a lot of camaraderie among our team, for the career advising team, our practicum team, and our employer relations team, as well as our leadership team. And then in how we work with our students, just having that visibility via the webcams, I think adds a lot to it. Wouldn't you say, Eric?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think our go-to is, webcams, right? We should use more webcams in career coaching and in student advising, but I don't know if that's always the case. I often find as our videos go on that videos can sometimes be distracting in a one-to-one coaching setting. I don't know about you, but working more on webcams, I'm often looking at myself, right? I'm often kind of sidetracked by other things that are happening in that webcam. So it just depends on the interaction. It depends on the student. I definitely think it's important to have it available, but I don't know if it'd always be my kind of go-to type of conversation. As I mentioned, a lot of our team members, a lot of our students, I should say, prefer the email and prefer texting if that was even a possibility. We stayed away from texting because it's really hard to have a coaching conversation via text. Email is difficult, but we understand that the need is there, and so we do the best we can with the whatever capacity the student is wanting to communicate with us in. And again, the flexibility, being agile, is important to the team to be able to do that. I would also add in there too, we, back to my comment about one size doesn't fit all, we know that's the same way when it comes to content. So we've worked really hard on developing different types of content pieces to really help students, whatever their learning style might be, or whatever their kind of desire to consume information is. So we have the traditional 1-hour webinar, which is also hosted virtually, that individuals can register for and log into and engage with others. We know that format might not fit for everyone, so we've also looked at creating short videos. We use a technology called Powtoons to develop short little snippets of information around whether it be resume or personal branding or whatever those hot topics are that students can consume very easily. We've also created one-sheets, worksheets, brochures, flyers that communicate the message out that we need to get to about the topics that we talk about in job search. And so you can see it's important for us to have all elements of that covered, because we know that, again, our students are wanting information very differently. We spend some time to be able to do that. Thanks,
Eric. Yeah, and another key tip, I think, is taking advantage of technology to make things scalable. So even though we're personalizing things to an individual, we've capitalized on technical resources to have these one sheets or standardized operating procedures or standard templates so that our colleagues can easily create something quickly for reaching out to or following up with their students. And also in assigning our advisors, we used our career service management software, which is our partner on this call for Cynaptx, to set that up. And I know if any system you're on, you can ask them how that would work with them. Those things are very helpful so that we can, when we do those things in a scalable manner and use our technology, we're better able to individualize our service to the students and alumni that we're working with through taking advantage of those opportunities. Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about our how we keep in touch with the students, all the reminders using, before we go there, Eric, I was going to touch on, we also partner with our Student Central area, which in your university might be called Student Services or anything like that. There are student support advisors that are with the student throughout their journey with their academic advising, scheduling their courses, being a support to them when they're struggling and celebrating their successes. And so we try to work in partnership with them. And so we have created integrations between our career service management software and our student information system, Banner, as well as Salesforce, to be able to communicate activities back and forth so that they can see what we're doing. But even more important than that, we also use not Canvas, I just want to blank on the name of the software that we use for student engagement, but it'll come to me and I'll share it. But we use that to send nudge campaigns that appear as though the student support advisor is reminding their student about something with career services or reaching out to them and asking them about something related to career services, because we recognize that only 1% of our students use career services, and their student support advisor they see more regularly. So we wanted to capitalize on partnering with them in that relationship.
And I think that's a great question. That's a great thing to point out too, is the communication and marketing aspect. I know we may all have the bad habit of, let's email about everything, right? Email is the way to go. Let's send everything in an email. And I'm sure, that your students, as are our students, get overwhelmed with email. There's just so much email coming out then because career services is emailing them, academics is emailing them, their peers are emailing them, financial aid's emailing them. They get a lot of emails. And so we still definitely use email as a communication, but we've condensed it, right? So when we were sending a lot of one-off emails about a virtual career fair or a webinar that was coming up, or taking advantage of how to access their career advisor, we put that into one email that we're calling a newsletter, and we send that out twice a month. And so it's helped us be able to focus our resources into that email so that we can make it more visually appealing. It can have one voice, one message, one tone, and get all of that information that we want into that one email. We've actually seen an increase in open rates and click-through rates because of that, because of the one look, the one feel, the consistency that we have. It's helped us be more effective in our email communication. But we also know that email communication isn't the only source. So we've done a lot of work in how do we use, as I mentioned, Canvas, our learning management system, to do better job of doing portal announcements so that we can reach them in the technology that they're currently in. We've used text reminders. We've done, as Ron said, mentioning nudge emails, working with our academic friends and our Student Central to have them email out messages. And so looking at how do you diversify your marketing so it's not relying on one thing, email, and becoming more and more ineffective. You're spreading that out and being more effective by reaching individuals in numerous places.
Awesome. So Eric, would you like to talk about how students should be utilizing this downtime? I mean, there's definitely the number of jobs that's open right now has decreased. Internships have gone virtual, or the volume has decreased. So how should students be using this downtime effectively? What's your advice?
Yeah, I'd love to, as we open this up, to hear from all of you, as we're all facing the same thing. What we found here at DeVry is, and what we're coaching our students to do is to stay active. My big mantra and what I tell everyone is waiting is not a strategy, right? So we hear a lot of students say, well, I'm gonna wait this out. I'm gonna wait to see what happens. I'm gonna wait for the economy to improve. I'm gonna wait for more jobs to be added. But you're gonna miss out on such necessary time that you can do a variety of things to make yourself more marketable and hopefully more successful when things do open up. And so we spend a lot of time talking about how to use LinkedIn, right? How to polish your LinkedIn profile, how to build your network by reaching out to others, really taking a deep dive into your resume and putting it into a new template or format, seeing what's working, what's not working, taking some time to do some self-reflection. And there's plenty of a lot of online assessments. We focus on the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment. So we tell students, now is the time to take some time that you may not be actively job searching because the jobs just aren't there, to think about yourself and how to better position yourself in the job search, so that you can be more defined, more specific, and more targeted to jobs that you're going to want to be applying to when the economy does improve. I mentioned that the networking, right? So now's the time to build your LinkedIn networking group, polish that message, find out what others are doing, increase your learning. If you are able, going back to school is always a great thing to build your skill set. Take free courses online, look for certifications that you can attend. So all of these things that individuals can do to improve themselves, improve their job search, are going to be key when the economy does open up. And so, again, it's the worst thing just to wait it out, because it's a really deficit to the seeker if they do that.
Yeah, that's great. So Eric, also, you have new advisors joining team, and there may be students who would need help that is more tied with some specialization that students are currently pursuing. So there may be advisors focused on that. How do you go about training a new advisor, and how do they blend into the process?
Yeah, training a new advisor virtually is difficult, because you don't kind of get that shoulder-to-shoulder connection. You're not able to kind of understand the nonverbal sometimes. But what we found is really successful is having our new hire partner with an advisor, senior advisor, that can walk them through everything, right? On top of the training that we offer, on top of them working directly with their manager, this partnered advisor can really give them the down low and go through the basics and answer any questions that may come up, and have the time to take with them to sit and talk about the real world, what really happens, right? Training does the best we can and tries to go through the details, but you don't really know anything until you're confronted with it. And you kind of think about, oh, well, wait, what did that training slide say? I took 2 weeks ago. Forget that. But having someone that you can reach out to virtually, and that's there for you, and is that that's their job, helps a lot in that, just being able to answer some of those questions that come up along the way. We also encourage new hires to reach out to all of our team members one-on-one, because we know the connection is important. When you're entering a new team, understanding who is who, what they do, and finding that family and that connection and that support is important. So we do a lot of different activities to help encourage that, as well as I mentioned, the one-to-one interaction with each of the team members that we have. And so whether that's via WebEx, we use Microsoft Teams a lot, a phone call, an email, really developing those relationships are going to be super important. And then creating a way for the new advisor to listen to phone calls is also really, really effective. And so we have some calls that we have. We also encourage them to meet with advisors and sit on calls together to listen to what's happening in that conversation. How is the individual reacting? What's the advisor kind of giving them as far as next steps? Also, our management team is really great about doing the mock calls, right? So helping them through maybe a difficult call by being that difficult call gives them the practice that they may not have, and giving them the confidence to do that before we throw them into the sharks, if you will. I'll also say, as far as all team members are concerned, we have a very large team of 23 advisors, and it was difficult to go from on campus to virtual, as I'm sure a lot of you are facing that same challenge. I think what's helped us is understanding that it is difficult, and giving ourselves that pass, and understanding that there's going to be some falls along the way, but anywhere that we could, using connection. So Ron, as our leader, is such a great example of always being on webcam, right? No matter what, no matter the call, no matter what the topic is, being on webcam. And so it's given our team being comfortable enough to turn that webcam on and see each other, which helps a lot. I would also say, we look for ways to schedule in some fun time, some silly time. We don't get that in the office, right? There's no water cooler that we gather around. There's no birthday party that we gather for cake. And so we have to recognize that we can't just be meeting. We need to focus in some downtime and some connection time and some relationship building. So whether that's a scheduled 30-minute call that we have every 2 weeks, or scheduling some time at the beginning of a meeting to talk about personal things, that's important. And I think that helps create this culture of connection that we didn't, that we may have missed by not being in person.
Great. So Eric, we are seeing a lot of questions come in, so let's try to get to some.
Yep.
So someone has asked, under this new model, do you have challenges capturing grad employment data?
Yeah, a lot of universities, we shifted away from being a university that focused heavily on placement and placement tracking. And Eric and I have talked about this at length, and we think that our career advisors appreciated when we shifted to a more developmental model like most universities work under, to focus on the career planning of our students and the mindset that if we start career planning as early as possible in the student life cycle, they'll have a goal and a plan and will be more likely to persist to graduation. So it is harder now to track placement, and I definitely think that's the case when you switch over to a developmental career planning type of a model. What's interesting is I think the more that we do engage our students and have positive experiences with them, like coaching them through their job search to landing their job, and having a good mix of the right employers available to our graduates and students, we therefore, I think, get more feedback from people's success stories than I've seen at any university I've worked for prior to DeVry. Do you want to add to that, Eric?
Yeah, and I will say, as a university, we still collect that information. It's just not done through career services. And that takes up so much pressure off of our advisors to not have to worry about that, because it became, so time consuming for them to worry about getting this information that they weren't focused on, that, as Ron mentioned, how do I help this individual? How do I really make sure this individual is successful, and not just, are they giving me their employment information? And so that really has been life-changing to the team to kind of switch our focus in that. And to touch upon what Ron said, I would agree. We're, because of this partnership that we create and we foster, we are getting so many individuals coming back to us because again, with accountability and that knowing that they're not in this alone, they're so quick to tell us about their excitement in their interview or networking connections or job offers, that we get such great stories from that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I think it's somewhat related. This question is again, did you find your placement rates being impacted by the change? And do you still get all grad data for reporting purposes?
We focus some of our grad data on certain specific programs based on their accrediting needs. Like for our engineering programs are accredited, and all of our programs, of course, are regionally accredited, but the specific ones for engineering, computer science, our medical billing coding, our health information technology, we do some specific tracking for those. And it is always a challenge when you're trying to survey students via a graduate outcomes type of a survey versus capturing it as you're working with them. If you can turn on the tracking system in your career service management software, oftentimes that helps. And it also depends on the methodology that your university is willing to use. Like some will let you use advisor faculty input as well as searching them on something like LinkedIn and things like that.
And I'll add in there too, I think it was a kind of a bet the university took to say, we might take a hit in our placement numbers, our response rates, but if that means that our students get more valued service, more customized service, it's worth it, right? And so, while we probably have seen a dip in the numbers that are reported, our satisfaction rates, what we use the Net Promoter Score, right? So it's that question on a survey that reads, from scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the service to someone else? We're in the 80s to 90s, right? Our students and alumni that receive services through our advisors are profoundly more happy than they ever have been because of that customized service that they're being provided. And so it's kind of just weighing out the outcomes and recognizing that in the day, if our students are happy, that's success for us.
Yep, and I'll also add that not only has our net promoter score increased, our students' retention rates have increased, and our graduation rates are increasing related to all of that, as well as we've focused much more on the success of our students and our graduates.
Awesome. Also, there is a question around managing advisors remotely. So how do you do workload imbalances? How do you deal with that? And what matrices you use to measure performance goals for your advisors?
Yeah, so the great thing about the Cynaptx tool that we use, and as I mentioned, the auto assignment process that's set up, we can clearly and easily see the number of students that are assigned to each advisor, right? So from the very beginning, whether they're working with us or not, we have a clear indication of the number of students that are assigned to that advisor to make sure it's level and equal. And the way that we assign our advisors is through program, as well as geographical region, so really grouping by state. And so then as students come through, again, the visibility into who's registering, because we track those statuses, we can understand which programs, which areas, which states, which cities we're seeing higher registration numbers come in, and who they're being assigned to. And so it allows us to really manage our workload and manage the advisor's workload very easily and very clearly, which is hugely helpful to understand if there's any hotspots or if there's any advisors that are starting to get overwhelmed. And so that's been really effective for us to just have that transparency in that. As far as success metrics, the NPS score it's talked about is a big one that we look at, but we also look at activity that they're doing towards helping that student succeed. And so how many jobs are they referring over to the student? As we'll hear on the employer webinar and the employer side of things, Terry and her team do a great job of finding us really great opportunities in roles at organizations. And so from the advising team, are we sharing those to students? Are we sending them and getting them in front of them so they can apply for those jobs? Are we getting their resumes done so we can refer those resumes over to to those employers? Are we creating resumes and coaching to a certain level? And that's something that might be unique to a virtual world. Is we worked really hard on creating a quality assurance form for our resumes, as well as our coaching calls, so that we could make sure that all advisors were writing resumes toward a certain standard, as well as the coaching calls were hitting key things that need to be hit within a coaching conversation. Knowing that, again, not one size fits all, and so giving the advisors plenty of discipline freedom, we kept these in pretty general, but also really clearly outline what was the expectation for a resume and for a coaching call. And so the management team spends time each year looking at the resumes, looking at the coaching calls, and grading our advisors toward that. And that's been really helpful too, because it creates expectations. The advisors know what's expected of them. We've seen more success in resumes being completed because certain things that we required are being done, and better resumes overall because of those things.
Yeah. Any other reporting that advising team uses that are really useful to track student engagement and how useful the system is turning out to them?
Yeah, and so one of the big reports that we use is a referral report. As I mentioned, that's really the magic of our career services department is kind of the intersection between the advising team and the employer team. Because again, the advising team, we're helping students, we're getting them to that referable status, and Terry's team is working really hard on getting those employment opportunities. We want to make sure that the connection happens between the two. And so the referral report that we have allows us to see what jobs are being sent, what's the status of those jobs, what were the applications that were sent, what happened to the application, were they closed, were they left open, did it lead to an interview, did it lead to a job offer, which advisors are working with these students, which employer relation advisors are working with their employers. It really is our true guidance into what's happening in career services through that report. But we have really access to dashboards, which are quick reviews of the data that we have, and then obviously being able to pull up reports, being able to see registrations that come through, being able to see the jobs that are being added. It's a really robust reporting functionality that allows us to, have a quick and easy access to this information in real time. Whereas before, it usually had to go through some analytical department that we would need to wait for them to pull this out or to construct some type of template for us to use. We can do this now ourselves, which has been really great for not only leadership, but also the individual advisors being able to have access to this information.
Yeah, and how do you track any self-reporting from students? I mean, if they got a job applying to a system externally or through their own personal effort, does that come into the system? Do you get to see that?
Yeah, so that happens really two ways. One is going to be through the student logging into the system and being able to let us know, an easy drop down, right? And not only that did they get the job, but did they not get the job? Did they get an interview? Gives us the ability to collect statuses very easily from the student directly, which is huge. We also then, because of the employer team being so involved with the employer and the advising team being so involved with the student, we might get that communication through a coaching call, or the employer team might get it through a conversation with a recruiter. And so we also have access to update that status. So we're getting it either from the student themselves or through a student conversation or from the employer to make sure that we're collecting that information as best we can. And again, it doesn't go to a formal reporting number that the university uses, but it helps us understand, are we doing our jobs? Are we pushing that needle forward? While job offers are great, and we always want to get job offers for our students, we know that sometimes an interview is a win for a lot of our students. So that's always a great success metric that we look at as well, because we want to make sure that we're helping that student move from point A to point B, and being able to collect this data helps us understand that.
Great. And Eric, there is a question: what percentage of students self-register for career services help, and what % of them are self-directed? And what is your take on that segmentation?
Yeah, so we service about 4,000 students and alumni every year. And so, it's hard to say percentage because it's also including our robust alumni population. But we typically see about 4,000 students and alumni. And again, this could be anywhere from a student just having a simple question that they wanted to meet with a career advisor with, or having, a 6-month kind of ongoing appointments conversation with an advisor. But those are all appointments that we've had, 4,000 individuals. And that doesn't take into account the virtual career fairs that Terry will address on the employer webinar. Our career development webinars. We have about 2 to 3 topics every month that we run on a career development topic through WebEx. We get between 50 to 60 individuals that attend those sessions, each of those sessions. It doesn't account for individuals using the tool itself by themselves. So the 4,000 is a really large number only with those working with advisors, but not taking into account all of the other services that we provide to our students and alumni.
Okay, I think, so there is a question on how large is your career services group?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the whole department now is 41 colleagues. So we've got myself as the national director and then 2 directors that report into me, Eric over the student-facing and alumni-facing side. They handle all of the career advising, coaching, and also our practicum coordinators for some of our healthcare programs. And then Carrie Bowman, the Director of Employer Relations and Internships, oversees a team that's geographically located to handle regions for employer outreach, employer relationship management, and coordinating our internship relationships as well. So 41 in total. If you take into account, we have in the mid-20,000s of students in courses at any given time. We have more than that enrolled that have access to our services because we have 6 8-week sessions a year. And so students might sit out during one 8-week session, but they still have access to all of their student services, such as career services. So we have to be prepared to handle a much larger number than, say, the 25,000 that are sitting in class during that 8-week session. We're also located in 17 markets. And so in those markets, we have some markets we only have 1 campus, while others we have a couple of campuses. And so that's where scaling and having the services available to all students, regardless of online or which campus, became really important to us. And we've done a really, I think, a phenomenal job training our colleagues and then interacting with them with some of the engagement tips we shared earlier. We have a phenomenal leader on our team, Annette and Kinko, that's not on our webinars, that helps with a lot of our curriculum updates and developments, our relationships with academics, and training all of our colleagues and keeping everything up to speed. And I think that answered the question in terms of how large the group is.
And I'll add, I know that we're fortunate to have such a large career services offering. I know a lot of the schools, a lot of individuals coming from schools may not have the ability to have such a large team. I think what's also made us impactful is to think about, and Ron introduced this, but model of one-to-one, the one-to-many, or one-to-a-lot, right? And so if you are a smaller career services group, how do you do that one-to-some or that one-to-many? Things that we've done is incorporating some small group career coaching sessions where we're having 1, 5, 10, 20, right? We're inviting a small group of individuals to sit in on a coaching experience with an advisor or two advisors, where we're able to talk through common problems, resume development, personal branding, networking, whatever it might be, but with a small group. And we find that really impactful because students can share their experiences. They can share what's working for them, what's not working for them. And sometimes that means more than coming from an advisor, right? So we're creating an environment that they can share those ideas, and we're able to facilitate that. I mentioned this earlier, but the Powtoons have been really successful. Those worksheets, the brochures or flyers or whatever you might want to call them, they've been really impactful and they reach a lot larger audience. So if you have the ability to create some of those other types of content in a smaller career services offering, you can spread that message much further than trying to hit everyone one-to-one.
Yeah, awesome. So there is a question, so maybe Ron, you could answer. Who compiles placement data for accreditation? And also, what is your technology stack?
Yep, thanks. Yeah, so I also listed our technology stack in the chat to everyone. If you didn't see it, hopefully I included everything. But for tracking placement data for certain accrediting bodies, we partner with our academic dean that oversees accreditation matters and accreditation visits, as well as with all of our faculty program chairs and deans of each area to work with them to gather data related to their accrediting needs. And then we have, it used to be, as many of you probably have, that one person in your team or a couple people in your team that are like data gurus and technical gurus. We've been working at DeVry to centralize a lot of stuff. I know I've worked for other universities. When I was at University of Arizona, for example, we were centralizing more of the use of like marketing and IT. So we did similar at DeVry. And so the people that worked on our data and such are still at DeVry, but they're in a more centralized team that we work with now, and they're able to all work together on the greater needs of the whole university as we've moved under this one university model. So we work with that team. There's just a couple of them to help us capture some of that data, and then we work with the Dean of Academic Excellence and Accreditation to help compile that data and have it when we need it for each accrediting body. I think that pretty much answers that question.
And Ron, how do you help students who have technological barriers? How do you assist students with disabilities virtually?
Yeah, do you want to take that one, Eric?
I think what comes to mind is what I said previously is about the customization, flexible, right? So we don't require everyone to be on a webcam on WebEx because we know not everyone can do that. So we really try to coach them, advise them where they're at, whether that's phone, email, WebEx, webcam. Even when we do open our campuses back up, hopefully shortly, we do have advisors still at campuses that can still meet with individuals face to face, because we don't want to lose our presence at any of our campuses, because we do know it's important to have a career services staff member there. But again, we know that many of our students want to do things virtually. I would also say if it's more of an ADA requirement, we can use certain technologies that allow us to service those individuals the way that they need to be serviced. We've done that in the past and then before, and we work closely with our ADA office to understand what those services are and implement them as needed.
Yep. And we've also done sorry, Pradesh, we just recently, this past fall, did a training with all of our career services colleagues to keep them up to date on ADA and how to offer accommodations to their students.
Yeah, I think we can take a couple more questions. We have a few minutes to go. So how have you managed challenges with the non-traditional students, like adult learners, parents? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. Yeah, I'd like to add here that it's one fun thing I think about working at DeVry is we have every type of student that a college or university would see, from traditional age to adult learners to those that have been out of school for a while, plus our military and veteran population, and then all those with special needs. And then we have those that study fully on campus versus those that study fully online, and those that do both, because that's an option. And so in managing those challenges, the leadership team has always tried to make opportunities available for ourselves and our teams to keep them trained and up to speed through organizations like the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NASPA, and also the 4 regional ACEs of NACE. What do you want to add to that, Eric?
Yeah, and I'll add on. We've taken some time, and this does require some budget, but to certify all of our advisors through the academies with a certified university career coach certification. It's a 10-week course that they were all able to go through, which helped understand different coaching styles, different ways to work with individuals who may have certain learning styles that are different. They have many certain obstacles that are prohibiting them from moving forward. How do you work through that? We've also had all of our individuals become certified resume writers. And so, giving them the knowledge, giving them the resources and the confidence to be able to have difficult conversations, crucial conversations with our diverse student population has been important. And I'll say it again, and I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's a customized approach. We know we have a diverse population, and we can't expect the same conversation to work with one student as it does with another. So in really empowering our advisors to look at how do you approach things differently, and using your listening skills to understand what's truly happening and what's the obstacle there.
Great. So I think with that, we are up against the hour. We have a webinar on Thursday as well. So all of you are welcome to join that, and we can take some more questions on that webinar. Before we let everybody know, any closing comments from you, Ron?
I'd just like to thank my leadership team as well as the leadership team at Cynaptx for helping us put this webinar on. And we're always happy, I could probably say this on behalf of Pratesh and Shanti as well as my leadership team. We're always happy to help colleagues tackle these challenges and come up with new ideas. I consider myself very lucky to have an amazingly talented leadership team at DeVry University, as well as our colleagues that meet with our students and our employers. We're very fortunate. So we're always happy to work with colleagues and be involved through NACE and the other groups, as well as with our vendors like Cynaptx.
And I'll add on to that, feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or have conversations that are needed. So thank you, Cynaptx and Pyra, for allowing us to come and talk about this important topic.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Eric, and
Terry,
partnership. And it was fantastic to have you on the webinar today and the opportunity to chat with you all. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.